Hi guys, welcome to the UX course. Now we are at module 7, chapter 10, where we are going to discuss mobile design guidelines through a slide deck, and also we'll understand a little bit of depth about it. And also, let's do a quick recap of what we learned in 7.9. We learned how to prototype. So let's do a quick view of that. So you saw we connected all the screens and authentications and booking, and we were able to check end to end how it works. All right, so let's go back to 7.10 and how we are actually going to uh, see everything here. All right, so let's see. As you can see, mobile guidelines, generally when we start designing for a mobile application, we take example of two different kind of devices, Android and iOS, Apple and any Android devices, like it would be Samsung, it would be Google's devices, and we take those practical comparison. But 90% of the designers, they would take the device from Apple iOS, and the frame would be iOS, and they would start designing. All right. So iOS focuses more on clarity, depth, seamless, minimal, aesthetic. In terms of if you see all of their applications, all of their personal product, they would be in singular color. They would not have a lot of color, they would not have a lot of font, they would have exact padding and all of that, and they would make sure that they have a minimal animation, and that's how iOS is. And with Android, you can use material digital paper, bold tactic, and so you can use a lot more animation in Android. I mean, parameter is not really set, but you can uh, have a goal to use, the multiple colors. Let's say, for example, I would go in my Figma. If you see here, I have. I like to design in a way that it kind of it represents both. It can you can be able to uh, value the iOS parameter as well, and also the Android parameter. So you can see I've used multiple colors. Not too many, but multiple colors. But if it was just for iOS, they would use single color, 2 3 colors max to max, and they would design everything else. But nowadays also, so this would more look like iOS, maybe in white format, but this would look more like Android. And I have been using material design format, which I use generic materials, shadows and all. And also, if you see all the icons, they are from material design icons. So in comparison, if you say the designs you should make, they should, if you see, this looks like iOS, if you see, this looks like more like Android. And in terms of you should design it in a way that it should fit both. So if you see, I have given some space for notch here as well. But nowadays also on Android, you have notches. In Android you have this much notches, but in iOS you have bigger notches. So you should always keep the devices in mind when you are designing for these two different kind of devices. Also the navigation part, see, in iOS you always have a back button, and Android you have the back button itself on the phone itself. And both ways is fine. I think it doesn't matter. But in the mobile app itself, you can have both type. You can have the back button on top itself, but you can also let the user use the natural back button itself. So I like to follow a navigational parameter that can be used for both. I don't really want to depend on one, and compromise on my design. My design should be minimal. Our design should be minimal, and it should be any user should be able to use it and read. Basically, it should be able to read the information correctly. The typography and the font and everything should be very readable, and an icon should also be representational, wherein you should be able to understand what icon you are using and what is the purpose of this icon for this specific layout. All right, let's go back to the PPT wherein we are discussing the design philosophy. So I told you my design philosophy, and Android and iOS, they have their own design philosophy. But as a designer, you should always have your own design philosophy as well. You cannot just depend on what everybody told you. But there are parameters you can keep in mind, like accessibility. But you should always think out of the box. All right, design system. So I would say design system is the most important aspect when it comes to designing mobile application or whether web application. Both material design by Google, Android, and iOS human interface guidelines, they both have design system, and you should combine both of them and create your own design system. Like I have created a design system which is being used across all. So that's what we did in the from the beginning to start. We only work through the design system we created. So for all these screens, I have a design system. And design system does not just mean the buttons, swatches, but it also means the patterns and the variables and the typography you're using, the spacing and the padding. So you see all the typography, all the color palette I have been using, and also you can go inside and see all the sizings are already fixed with the golden ratio, which is multiplication of 7. So I use golden ratio in order to be consistent, in order to make everything look consistent across the devices or the pages. Same goes with typography, the sizing, and what you call two different kind of fonts I use that works in both order. So font weight and size for typography as well. And also if you see colors I use on different parameters. I have branding colors, I have base colors, and I have indicator colors. My indicator colors are always same for all the designs. I don't change a lot in my indicator colors because those are very significant color. They can be used for different kind of warnings and different kind of messages. But base color also cannot be changed a lot. You can go from white to black, and you can mix it up. You can have darker gray. So there could be like 10-15 colors within black to white. Branding, it really depends on the brand you're working with, but I would suggest don't use more than two colors. You can mix up a little bit of gradient for background and for buttons. Not really completely recommended, but sometimes you could see that that looks really good, like how I have used in this mobile application. And I use generally two colors, and even if you see the button is combination, the gradient is combination of these two colors only. So these variables are already defined every time before I jump into the real product. So everything you design has to have has to come from a parameter. It cannot be random, not even spacing, not even sizing, not even the colors, not even the typography. Everything has to be defined in order to make a better design, make a consistent design. Let's go back to the slide deck. So I'll take one slide at a time, and I'll talk from my perspective and also from the perspective design guidelines which are already there out there. Navigation pattern, as you saw, the back button and also the top navigation bar, also the bottom navigation bar. Bottom navigation wherein I'm clicking on the booking and it is going to the booking page. that works for both Android and iOS both. So swipe top left, it works because I have created for keeping both in mind, and tab bar I have used below the card, which works for both. Let's go back to Figma and see how it looks. So I have used three different kind of navigation parameters here. If you see, it also depends on the application, what applications you're working on. So this is the first navigation parameter, which is the main heading, bugger menu, and then search, notification, and profile. And this is the second parameter of navigation, second placement. This is the second placement, but I call this second because it comes from primary, secondary, and the third category. So this is your main navigation in terms of creating something. So creating a job, creating a request. So that comes as a second one, and the spacing is maintained across all the places. And third category, if you see, is the tab navigation, which can be placed either on home page or wherever it is needed. All right. Third navigation category, if you see that every page, like an external page I would go to, I would always have the same way to come back or close that a specific page. And if I have a button navigation at different places, that would always follow on the bottom of that specific category. And this is also a navigation, but this is more like a card navigation. If you click on that specific card, it should slide to the next page itself, and that works on both. If you see here, if I have let's say a request, I would click here and this should go back here. And let's say I would go on profile, and everything would work like this. Okay, let's go back to our slide deck and see where what is next. All right, so touch target. So if you see, this is parameter wise, the sizes of each point. uh, this is, I don't think this matters a lot, because in Figma you're already you're using pixel. But if you see on, you can decide how big or small your element should be. And the basic parameter is to follow 44 for elements or the main navigation. Why? Because uh, that much of space is needed for clicking or tapping on any animation or any link. Okay, let's go to the next one. 5. So this really doesn't matter in terms of branding. I can use different font. I don't have to completely use Roboto or Google Sans or SF Pro. I can use my own font. But what matters is how you use that typography, how you build your own typography. So let's go back to Figma and see how we have built our own typography system. So nothing is random here, if you see. So the first way I have built the typography is okay, and I've also showed it that how it can look. So you have title, you have subtitle, you have body bold, you have subtitle bold, you have subtitle small, and so there are different kind of criterias of text which you need to be able to use, and those text can be converted also into styles. So it looks, it is easier to pick those styles and use it in your design, and those styles should come from all the variables created in terms of which font family are you using. So I'm using two font families. For title, I'm using Times New Roman. That goes only at one place. But others, I'm using Arial and DM Sans, which goes with body, subtitle, and any other font. I can use other fonts as well. So DM Sans is my go-to font always. And you can see I change once and everywhere it changes automatically. So it's more about designing smart for me more than just random designing. Okay, I can make this little smaller. Okay, it's clipped, so it will be scrollable. All right, let's go back to our slide and see where we are. All right. So typography, you understand how to create those typography, and you must have typography styles built for consistency. And the minimum size for indicator is 10, and that multiplies to 10, 12, 16. 16 is a most readable font in mobile or in web as well, but 16 to 18 can be compared between web and mobile. But after that you keep going up. Let's say you can go 22, you can go 36 for the title, and then you can go little bigger, as big as 56, not more than that. Okay, so let's see what is next on guidelines. Platform behavior. So safe area, as we discussed, the safe area from bottom, from right, from left, from top. So in iOS and also I think in Android now you need to have the safe area from top and bottom. You saw that I have 21 pixel padding from top, not just from the top but left, right, and bottom, which helps me safeguard all the elements I have been using on the design. There is not much in terms of keyboard handling until it is a web application. Permission and prompts, we should always have prompts for like if it is getting an OTP or if it has been successful. In this case, we did not have to create a prompt, but prompts are important factor when you're designing a mobile application, or you're designing anything. So if there are successful prompt, I have created those warnings for success and for success, and if there is a warning if something has failed, so you must be using prompt. So I can take some examples later on and put it in the slide for you to, or put it in the content for you to observe and see how the prompt works. All right, let's go in the next one. So I think in 6 we had all of it. We saw all the guidelines, how it works and how it will help you to understand the design guidelines. So navigation, system design, the color palette, and being consistent and keeping everything readable is very much important in terms of guidelines, not just mobile guidelines, but I would say UX guidelines. All right, let's see what we are going to learn next. So our next chapter is 7.11, which is case study compilation and documentation. So what we will do is whatever we have created in the design, we will create a case study which can be used either on Behance or any portfolio website, and which you can also use for yourself to send it out to someone, or create it as a link, and then you can send it out to someone and they can see your work, and you can also send it to your client and managers to compile everything. All right, so we have covered that. Let's say we have two more chapters.